Hey everyone, welcome back to Breakthrough Innovation, where we explore the real stories behind the ideas, experiments, and leadership that shape the future. Today's guest is someone who lives at the intersection of bold thinking and real world impact. Jeff Danley is the Director of Innovation at Burns McDonnell, one of the country's leading engineering and construction firms, but his track record goes well beyond blueprints and job sites. Jeff is a lifelong innovator whose work includes a patent for the mobile hotspot, pioneering email and video streaming on mobile phones, and even winning an Emmy for his work on Sprint TV. He's worked across startups and global enterprises, helping teams deliver ideas that once sounded impossible. Now he's leading corporate innovation from the inside out, launching a program called Innovation by Design that blends human centered design thinking with hard business realities in infrastructure, energy, and industrial sectors. Jeff, we've worked together in the past. I think we were aligned pretty closely on some of our approaches to innovation. I think this is going to be a great conversation. So, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me today. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. So, I'm actually really curious about what innovation looks like in a company like Burns and McDonnell and how your program, Innovation by Design, is coming to life.
Yeah, for sure. So, corporate innovation, I've seen this throughout my career where companies that lack an innovation program, a structured innovation program, it's really hard to find focus. And when you can't find focus, it's almost impossible to deliver value. And so, what we're doing within Burns and McDonnell is across the entire organization from the top down, we set all of our organizational, our objectives and key results, our OKRs, and those filter down through the entire organization. And that makes sure that we're all working towards common objectives. And then when we look at new innovative opportunities, we always try to tie those back to those objectives that we're trying to achieve. And then it's less about the technology and you're really focused, or a business process. Innovation doesn't necessarily have to be technology related, but any of our innovative efforts, I'll say, then they're all aligned to achieving common goals across the organization. So really deploying that framework, we've got 11 different global practices here at Burns& McDonnell. We've got numerous regional offices across the country and globally. So establishing a framework for how we pursue innovation, that's really been the core of my job here. And then deploying that out to those regional offices and within each of our global practices so that I'm not necessarily holding the reins and guiding the innovation. I'm giving them the framework so that our innovators in each of those pockets of the company can then have a common framework from which they're working.
Love that. So, what do some of those frameworks look like? Like, what are some examples of how they're applied?
Yeah, it's a lot of these activities are happening within the organization already. And I'm sure many organizations are similar where you set your organizational goals and objectives, right? You've got teams that are, or individuals even that are looking at what's happening in the technology space. I like to look at that as what are the new capabilities or the tools that we have to work with. And then you've typically got other people that are looking at what are the trends within our industry, right? And I was told when I started working with engineers, I needed Venn diagrams in my presentations. So this is one of my new Venn diagrams where if you look at your organizational goals and objectives, you look at the industry trends within your industry, or for us, like our clients that are in the utility space or data center space or what have you. And then you look at the technology trends. And if you overlay those into a Venn diagram, and if you have an interesting and innovative new idea that touches all three of those, it's near the center of that Venn diagram, you can almost always deliver value there. So, we try to align these different, we have, like I said, we have people in these roles across the company today. So bringing them together in this common framework, make sure that we're leveraging the skills and the capabilities and the work that people are doing in pockets of the company today, but we're bringing all of that together to really focus and drive intentional innovation.
I love that. And I know like one of your focuses it has been that innovation is more about the people. I mean, that's a big part of being human centered. When you think about that, how does that human centered people focus? How does that come to life as you look at innovation?
Yeah, throughout my career, even before design thinking was a thing, right? When I first got started, right out of college, I was looking for problems that people were trying to overcome. And I'm just a technology nerd, right? I enjoy exploring the latest technologies. And I tell people I'm like the kid that I always liked Legos, but
Yeah.
I don't want the instructions. Like, don't give me the instructions. I want to see what I've got to work with and assemble them however I want. And I think as I've, grown up, gotten older, I'm not playing with Legos anymore, but I want to know what are the tools and capabilities that I have to work with and then assemble those in new ways that solve problems for people. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a problem. There can be a new opportunity that maybe they haven't seen the opportunity yet, or they're not sure how to capitalize on that opportunity. I always try to focus on the human element and look at how can I help a person by delivering some innovative new thing.
Right. No, I love that. I think a lot of people kind of misunderstand the idea of human centered as well, and tend to think of it more as just customer centered.
Yeah.
And the reason I bring that up is you tied it back before. The innovation isn't just about technology, and a lot of times it isn't just about a product. It's about how do we make sure the humans involved are having their needs met. When you're leading these programs within Burns and McDonnell, how are you balancing that internal focus, ensuring people have the space, the safety, and everything they need to be creative, resilient, and innovative, while also balancing that against the business needs to ensure that that value is being created?
Yeah, that's a challenge that I don't think is unique to our company.
Absolutely not. Yeah.
Anytime you've got corporate goals and objectives, and then you have the needs of the people, right? You have to find a way. This is where we as leaders in this space really have to bring together the people needs and optimize our teams to help them deliver on those corporate goals and objectives. We see these companies in the headlines all the time that are more focused on the corporate side, or the what's best for the business, not necessarily the people, and those tend to be toxic work environments. And my personal perspective is people get burnt out there and they leave. So yeah, I mean, that's, again, as leaders, that's what we have to do, is understand how do we optimize our teams and give them the tools and resources they need to, so that they're successful, and when they are successful, the business is successful.
No, I like that. I'm curious. You like that term, optimize the team. I'd like to dig into that a little bit. And like in your mind, like how are you looking at team optimization? What are the things that you look for? What are the metrics or the levers you pull when you're trying to take a team from maybe not as innovative as they should be to a place where they're creating new value, not just basic value?
So that's an interesting conversation, right? Because I think that team makeup, it certainly varies based on what you're trying to accomplish. I guess I'll tie it back to, I believe this is a process you are familiar with, but when I kick off an innovation workshop, and I've facilitated several of these workshops with you in the past, or participated in yours, and I facilitate them here at Burns and McDonnell. But when I bring together a group of people and we're tackling an innovation workshop, I want significantly diverse perspectives. And when I say that, I mean, when we're looking at a challenge that we're trying to solve, I want someone from marketing, finance. Here at Burns and Mac, I'll pull somebody in from the field that's out in our construction sites. I want all different perspectives, because
Absolutely.
it's very rare that you find someone that has, well, I take that back. There are challenges that people have individually, right? But typically we're trying to solve like bigger issues that are more impactful across the company. And seeing those issues from diverse perspectives helps us really identify what's the root of this problem, right? And more importantly, when we define the solution, I can't just meet one person's needs with that solution. I need to meet the needs for that team, right? So I don't know if that was directly where you were going with the question, but that's, I think optimizing that team, it's varies based on what you're trying to accomplish. But again, I think the diverse perspectives, and including, I won't say as many people as possible, because I think the larger those workshops get, the more challenging they can be to get value out of them. But certainly optimizing the number of diverse perspectives you bring to the table is very, very helpful, if not essential.
No, I would agree. I love that the diversity of experience that gives you the kind of that full 360 view of a problem. And then I also like that concept of, so I guess the way I tend to say it is if you have a really good primary customer persona picked out, if you solve the problem for that person, there's a really good chance you're solving that problem for a lot of your secondary and tertiary customers as well. So I think
That's
that
right.
idea of understand your challenge, understand the people involved in that challenge, and chances are you'll create a widespread of value there. So maybe just kind of looking at some of your history in the companies you've worked at. I know a lot of times people will talk a big game about innovation, but maybe the practice isn't there. And I know you speak at conferences, you've talked and worked at a plenty of different companies. What are some of the common, let's call it innovation theater traps that companies fall into? Like, what are some of the gotchas that leaders need to be watching out for?
Yeah, I think, and I believe you and I share this perspective that some companies and particular individuals are there's a general fatigue with this term innovation, and certainly within the corporate culture, some people are sick of hearing about innovation, and I think it's because they've had poor experiences with innovation theater. A company, it is not effective to set aside a budget for innovation. And I've seen companies set aside significant budgets and then have no strategic direction, no focus on how they pursue innovation, right? I won't name any names, but one
Yeah, please
place,
don't.
what I've seen is there was someone that this was years ago, but their objective, their approach to innovation was to buy every new gadget from Kickstarter and then try, because that's where they looked for innovation, and then try to work that into their business and solve problems with it. And that feels like a technology first approach to innovation, right? Not a people first approach, right? Like, okay, here's this new widget. How do I put this widget into my company to make us better? And that that does not work.
Well, it's even more than that. It's a solution first approach, right? Let's buy a
Yeah,
solution and then let's go find a problem to fix with it. That feels
right. Right.
like a
That's
waste.
exactly right. And again, I think that's, that falls into that category for me anyway of innovation theater. Like, we've set aside a
Yeah.
budget and we have dedicated people that have the word innovation in their title, but the real impact they have on the business is, I mean, it's not even that there's no value, it's negative value. They're costing the business money. They're spending money on things that don't matter to the people in the business. So again, laddering this back up to looking at your corporate goals and objectives, or even it doesn't even have to be the corporate goals and objectives. You can do this at a team level as well, right? But where are you going with your organization as, talking to leaders, right? As a leader in innovation or product development or what have you, you have to have goals and objectives for your team. And then when you focus your innovation efforts on those goals and objectives, you can almost always create value, or you've got a much greater opportunity to provide value than if you don't have any direction.
Yeah, and I think, it's a pretty good target to say if you're solving a real human need in your industry, in your realm of influence, you're probably going to create business value as you do it. Now, that said, you kind of talked about this concept of innovation fatigue, right? Like the term is overused. It's kind of like agile. I think everyone's heard the term agile and everyone has some trauma in their past professional life centered around the word agile. I think we're seeing that with innovation now. So, like too many tools, too little alignment, all the things you talked about. What advice would you give to leaders who really want to make sure they're seeing that impact and not just the noise of theater?
So, again, having a innovation program, this is easy for me to say because this is what I did in my previous role and why I was brought to Burns Mac to do this. But have a defined innovation program that you can deploy across your company, regardless of if you're a 50-person, small firm, or we're a 1,000-person construction and engineering firm. You know, Take a strategic approach to identifying your organizational goals and objectives, and then find those opportunities. You have to know what's happening within your sector, right? Like within your industry, what are the trends? So I'll give you a good example. For us, one within the construction space is this labor shortage. No secret, like every
Right.
construction
Yeah.
company is facing this labor shortage. And there's if you there are 300,000 job openings right now for welders in the United States. And if you Google the average age of a professional welder, It's 57 years old. There are more people
Yeah.
retiring from this industry than there are going into it. I need welders at every one of our job sites, almost every one of them, right? So this is a challenge for us. So the technology I'll tie this back to is robotics, right? With no focus on an innovation program. There were some perspectives on this just before I arrived here, but people are enamored with the shiny object, right? And in this case, the shiny object was these robotic dogs that we've all seen on the internet. I've seen them at
Yeah.
conferences, and people want to spend lots of money on these robotic dogs. And then I asked the question, well, what? Okay, that's cool. Like, I'd like to play with one of these dogs. What are we doing with it at a construction site? How is it adding value? That's like it just stumps people. Like, well, I don't know. We can put a camera on it, and okay, well, is getting those photographs or reality capture scans worth the cost of the dog? And so, needless to say, we don't have a robotic dog today. But, however, if we look at our welding practice, there are robotic welders that now someone can train a welder to perform a robotic welder to perform certain tasks. We need welders. We're trying to train up as many new welders, humans, as we can, but we can't keep up with the demand. The industry can't keep up. So we can train robotic welders to not only augment our workforce, right, but now we've created a new role because there might be people coming out of college today that have no interest in going into a welding hut that's hot, you're sweaty, dirty, working in that environment all day. But if you could come in and manage a team of 10 robots, that's exciting. I think
Yeah.
that's exciting.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's, again, we're solving a problem with innovation. And that was just one example of, how I've seen that play out here in my current role.
No, I like that. Make sure you're solving a real problem and then engage the people who are going to really benefit and enjoy the solution. I think that that's a great way to not only get the problem solved, but get the people who are closest to the problem excited and
That's
involved.
right.
So I love it. I think that's great. Now we do have to wrap up. Jeff,
Yep.
if someone is interested in learning more about your innovation program or what you do at Burns McDonnell, what's the best way for them to get into contact with you?
Yeah, I'm not hard to find. I'm not hiding anywhere, but LinkedIn's probably the best place to find me. I enjoy writing and sharing my experience and my perspectives on both corporate innovation, and right now I'm doing a lot of work in the AI space and taking a similar approach to looking at how AI affects the humans and how do we solve problems and not just go, chase the latest large language model or computer vision. So, but yeah, hit me up on LinkedIn. I'm happy to chat, happy to connect, and I do try to share some information out there. But yeah,
Awesome. Well, for everyone who made it to the end of the episode, I want to say thank you. I would love in the comments to hear a little bit about your thoughts about robotic dogs. Maybe you have a more positive view than Jeff does. I'm just kidding. But how is innovation coming to life, and what innovation programs exist within your company? I'd love to hear about it. Give us some insight. If you know anyone who's trying to spin up an innovation program within their organization, share this episode with them. Introduce Jeff to them, and spread the value a little bit. It helps us. It helps them. Puts a little good karma out into the world. Jeff, thank you so much for your time. I know how busy you are. I really appreciate you sharing your insights with us and our audience. It was a great conversation.
yeah, happy to be here today. Thanks for including me, and I look forward to catching up soon.
Awesome. So, everyone else, thank you very much for listening all the way through, and we'll see you all next time on Breakthrough Innovation.